Hey everybody, my Web3 fellow citizens, please welcome to another episode of the Smart NFT Podcast. I'm your host, Eugene Creepy MC from Envelop, and today I'm going to explore the cutting-edge cybersecurity technologies in Web3. So I'm joined today by two distinguished Australian gentlemen. They are Joe Haslam and Fletcher Roberts. They are co-founders and directors of Hashlock, and Hashlock is the industry-leading Web3 security auditing firm founded in Australia. And by the way, Envelop has been historically based something here on Bali. So greetings for all the Indonesian, our guys. So we've been at least a sort of close geographical friends from first. And we didn't dive into cybersec topic on our podcast yet. So I'm eager to fix this right now and deliver some values to our listeners. So gentlemen, thanks for joining our podcast.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Great. I love to talk to guys with clear British accents, because Great Britain is the empire which united all the world recently, 200 years ago, and we are still experiencing the consequences of that. So let's start, guys, with shortly your background, how you got into Web3 space and how you decided to found Hashlock.
Good question. Yes, so Hashlock is one of the newer auditing firms in the industry compared to, most of our competitors of similar size. So we're around just under 3 years old now. And so Jock and I obviously have, been sort of interested in the Web3 spaces from more of a top level. Jock a little bit deeper than myself on on more of the tech side and things like that. But then both of us have different business backgrounds as well. And effectively, Jock and I knew each other outside of business through various ways. And we thought that we would be perfect co-founders on a venture. And the thing is with Hashlock is there wasn't, because obviously Jock and I are Australian, there wasn't a blockchain cybersecurity firm or an independent auditing firm in Australia that just did security auditing. There was a few that did security auditing and development or worked on their own projects, but no specialized, independent auditing only within Australia. So when we started Hashlock early, it allowed us to gain a lot of market share in Australia. Australia does have a lot of Web3 projects. And so, like the Red Belly Network and Verida and things like that. And so we're able to, gain most of the Australian market share really quickly. Built up a good reputation, did some, bunch of different work in even academic fields and, sort of government style collaborations, and then built up a reputation. And then now, sort of nearly 3 years later, we're seen as one of the leading Web3 security auditing firms in the world, probably the fastest growing or one of the faster growing audit firms in the world. And most of our stuff now, just because of the market size, comes from comes internationally. We still have our core Australian clientele, but just because of the size of the Web3 industry globally, most of it's international now. So that's sort of the very quick story into Jock and myself's business backgrounds and also just very quick crash course into how we started Hashlock, but it's definitely a long story.
Right here. Jock, would you like to add something, some details here?
Yeah. I like to say, Eugene, that I was the person that holds the title of introducing Fletcher to the Web3 space. And Fletcher came to me as well. But Fletcher holds the title of being like, all right, let's start Hashlock. Because we just saw that, sort of Hashlock's core mission was initially, and like still is today, mass adoption of Web3 technology. We're both like really interested in the tech, and we wanted to get into the hands of more and more people. And the biggest sort of barrier to entry that we saw from people who aren't already in the space was security, because from the outside looking in, they see all the hacks and scams that happen in the space. We thought, well, what can we do to fix that? So use our skills and start Hashlock.
Great. May I call you the first Australian cybersecurity company firm in Web3? The first Australian. Is that correct?
The first that specializes completely and only into cybersecurity for Web3.
I've noticed that one of your blog posts on your website compares, we're not it doesn't compare it, but it compares Hashlock with Haken. And I am personally Ukrainian, and Haken is a Ukraine-based firm, and I'm personally familiar with Dmitry Budorin, the co-founder of Haken. So, okay, we're not comparing right now. I would love to ask you about Australia. I am generally perceiving the world's picture of Web3. I'm a bit understanding of South Asian segment of Web3. What is, if it is a specific of Australia in Web3? First of all, we know that the first cybersecurity firm is Hashlock. This is the first side of Australia in my head. What else in Australia is more specific, if to compare with the world picture? Why Australia is specific in Web3, if it is?
Good question as well. So the Australian ecosystem is very tight knit, and but it's definitely quite productive. So it's obviously not as big as the US markets or places like that, but there is a lot of high quality production. So the other sort of firm that's similar to Hashlock, but a bit older, and we look up to a lot, is Sigma Prime. They do a lot of stuff for the Ethereum network themselves. You've also got Labris, which is the one of the largest or the largest specific Web3 development firm in the world. And all of their developers are onshore in Australia. And then you've got a bunch of projects, like I've already mentioned, Red Belly Network and Verida. You've got a bunch more that I'm probably forgetting, unless Jock, ones that we want to yell out, but there's heaps that we work for. And there's a lot of events too. So we've a big part of our success was the Australian Crypto Convention. So that's on every year. It's actually pretty sizable for an Australian event. All of the a bunch of projects from around the world actually come to it, not just Australian projects. Jock and I, when we started Hashlock, just us two went there. I think it was actually on some loaned money, and we landed some of our best clients. Oh, Fluidity Network, massive project out of Australia, really good early client of ours that we still do some stuff with their team. And so yeah, a bunch, Paragon's DAO, another one, and Equalis DAO. So yeah, we have good events. We have a bunch of good teams, bunch of builders. It's not massive, but it's very productive and sort of a good little hub within Australia. It helped us grow. So if anything, we're a product of the Australian industry. I'm not sure what you think, Joe.
Yeah, well, pretty much just reiterating what Fletcher was saying. It seems like although, it was a niche within a niche being, the Web3 ecosystem, and then, in an island called Australia that's, pretty distant from the rest of the world. It was, even though it seemed like a very, tight-knit circle, it was a very sort of open group of people who were very inviting to us, sort of, sticking our heads out, being the sort of new kids on the block in the security space and willing to give us a go. And I think it really allowed us to excel at an extreme rate, because we were sort of given so many really cool, high quality projects that were, based out of Australia. We got to see what a lot of people were working on, and we got to sort of help them, build it securely. So and shout out as well to Yev from Hacken. We know Yev very well, and we like to say in the Web3 space, there's no such thing as competitors, and only collaborators. So
Yeah.
anyone that's helping to secure the ecosystem, we're happy.
I can say that we are competitors in Web3. We just the creators. We are founders, collaborators. We are so small right now, nonetheless, of 15 years of having Web3 on the planet Earth. By the way, I've remembered that a guy named, his name is Anthony Sassani. He's co-host of the famous Bankless podcast. He's from Australia, too, if I'm not mistaken.
He is.
Very
Yes.
interesting guy. Well, so, guys, how would you estimate the general level of illiteracy in Web3 right now in cybersec? Are we have been grown-ups in 15 years of Web3, or are we still children in that space?
Good question as well. So in terms of the retail market, still definitely there's not much education. People are still getting scammed, making mistakes, clicking links when they shouldn't, investing in projects that are clearly, scams and things like that. And that's like Jock said, one of the reasons why we started Hashlock, or the reason. So Yeah, from an individual perspective, it's still quite low, but it's a technology that's very hard to use, and it's one of Web3's problems. From an institutional level, though, I think it is getting better. I think most projects, most enterprise blockchain projects are getting audits, hopefully multiple, and there's really good custody solutions, enterprise custody solutions, and so we're seeing more maturity on the enterprise level. But I definitely think from an individual, retail perspective, people are still, not waking up. Maybe it's because they're, Web3 investors and they're very risky anyway, so they don't care. But yeah, so uh, I think Web3 security education is a massive area. We don't do as much as we probably could in Hashlock. We do a bunch of education, obviously, but it's a massive area of focus. There's a bunch of Web3 businesses that do security education as their primary focus. And I think that's a massive area of potential. So we always try to support that sort of stuff. And yeah, I don't know what you think, Joe.
Yeah, well, every now and then we do talk to some project leads and founders that, depending on how sort of technically literate they are in the space, do hit us up with the question of what's a smart contract audit. And it's funny when we get hit with that question, when essentially it is the backbone of our entire business. So there definitely needs to be more education about sort of the ins and outs of the tech. And I think it's just a caveat of it being in its infancy still, but I do think that the sort of technical security aspect definitely goes into the UI, UX, and use case of people interacting. That this is a technology that has a lot of immutable properties, and that's where security needs to be at the forefront of people's mind in interacting with it. I feel like in some degree, when people make their first transactions using blockchain and crypto, they well, hopefully double check the address, and sort of that sort of security vibe is in the air, and everyone's sort of worried and checking on chain if it's actually gone to the right place. But after a while, I think you get a little bit complacent. But when that comes down to operations of contracts, you can't be complacent. Otherwise, people lose lots of money, and a lot of the times it's community funds that get hacked or stolen. So we don't want members of the community losing their money.
Yeah, indeed. Before we jump into the question of why do we need an audit of smart contracts at all, what are your favorite top 5 problems of cybersec all of your project have been dealing since day one or dealing right now, Fletcher?
Yeah, Jock, do you want to take that one, or do you want me to grab that one? Do you got any?
Top 5.
Five's a lot.
I can probably 5. Yeah, I'm thinking 5. 5 is quite a bit, but I would say maybe 1 off the top would be a lot of people do build for functionality and utility first. I think that's a really good idea, and it can be a quick way to sort of build fast and move quickly, but it can introduce a lot of issues, and that's why it's super important, if you're not really building with a security mindset, to have that third party set of eyes on the code, because a lot of the time you can have literally the best developers in the world, but you can sort of have this blindness when you're building for this functionality and utility, and you sort of get swept up in the motions of this excitement, but it can introduce a lot of niche vulnerabilities that sort of haven't been categorized or created yet, because you're doing something new and unique. So maybe number 1 is build for a security mindset. Maybe Fletcher, we can just go one by one.
Well, yeah, I think some of the ones quickly, just for me, is lack of knowledge broadly is one, causes a lot of issues. Number 2 is using Web3, similar to what Jock was saying, when you don't need to use Web3. So building tech with blockchain infrastructure that doesn't require it. That's often how you get security risks. The other one's obviously cheap audits. So Hashlock audits are quite expensive, and there's not much we can do about that, because we get very good auditors. Now we'd like to say we're better than amongst all the reputable firms, we're pretty good on pricing, but in general, it's an expensive exercise. So, but there are firms out there that will give you a tick of approval for not much money, and that is a security risk massively. And then another one is if you get an audit, even a good audit like Hashlocks, and then never do any security again, you never run a bug bounty, you never monitor it, you never revisit it at all. You think that the audit's going to protect you forever. There's a bunch of reasons why that's a bad idea, and it's a huge risk factor. So the last one that I can think of is when you build like a Web 2.5 style protocol, which is, it's implementing some blockchain technology and it's talking to Web 2 technology and it's trying to mix the two together, and you've got APIs working in between, and even bridges sort of work like this with other infrastructure that sends messages in between. So bridges are a good example there, where you have the Web 2.5 dynamic. Yeah, you can have huge issues because Web3 tech sort of works well with Web3 tech, but when you mix them together, it's another core restraint with blockchain technology is integration with traditional technology. So there are some for you. I'm not sure. Anything else?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, I'd already said one, I think, so we've got four more to go, unless I count yours as well. But another thing that
I
I
just
thought
rattled off
of
like three.
is, oh, sorry, sorry, three. Phishing and social scams are still really common. I think a lot of the scams that are existent in like Web 2 technology, catch a lot of people in the Web 3 space still. Centralization risks as well, where maybe some projects are a bit more centralized than decentralized can always, I sort of say infamously that the code is more trustworthy a lot of the times than humans. So you have to be careful with that. Another thing would be key management. A lot of people are doing that sort of in-house instead of using a reputable third party. And maybe for number four would be bridges. Bridges are just because I guess from the non-technical viewpoint, it's like, oh, I'm moving my token from one place to another. Most of the time, that's not what happens at a technical level. It's burning and minting, and anytime that happens across chains, that can implement a security risk, and that's where we see a lot of the big exploits happen in the past.
Well, gentlemen, I personally hate this way of asking. Explain me like I'm 5 years old, but nonetheless, maybe not so silly question for anybody who's not involved so big in tech. Why may a Web3 project need an audit or smart contract audit from your side? And what stage of development? Jock mentioned UI UX, but I realized that first you need to think about cybersecurity, then about the UX. On what stage of development it must be done, an audit of smart contracts?
Oh, Fletch, do you want to take that?
Okay,
Oh,
sure.
sorry. Yeah, you go.
Okay, I think that's a slight delay. Yeah, okay, cool. So a couple things with Web3 tech, and the reason why you need to get it audited. So one, traditionally and typically, when you deploy Web3 technology onto the blockchain, it's now on the public ledger of the blockchain, and it can't be changed. Now, there are some exceptions to that, but essentially it's permanent. So you have to get the code right the first time. So that's one risk factor. Secondly, the code handles typically high volumes of liquidity, lots of capital, and it's on one layer. So if you think about like traditional, custody of currency, it's within a bank, it's got multiple levels of security and technology on top of it. On the blockchain, you're deploying a smart contract, one piece of code, one sort of file of code, or multiple files on one layer, one layer of the tech stack that holds all of the value, and it's public to everyone. Anyone can see it, and anyone can actually interact with it. So, the zeros and ones in your bank account, it's hard to get to the layer where you can actually interact with it. But on a blockchain, it's a public ledger. A blockchain is like a public computer. Anyone with the right access or who can attempt to gain the access can call that contract. And if they call it, they can interact with it. And then if they can interact with it, they can find ways to exploit it and make mistakes. So to explain it really simply, it's permanent. It holds a lot of liquidity, and all the liquidity is on one layer, essentially. So the risk is extreme. And you only get one shot before you to get it perfect before you deploy it to the blockchain. So the last reason I would say is that the community expects you to get an audit. Because of all the things I've just referenced, it's so high risk that the community expects you to get an audit. And if you do not get an audit, they won't trust your technology and they won't invest in it, they won't use it. And more so, if you don't get an audit, they'll actually distrust you because it looks a bit suspicious that you're not getting a third party to review it. Most reputable projects actually get multiple audits, sometimes from the same firm. So oftentimes we'll do multiple audits. But if it's the same bit of tech, they'll actually go to Hashlock, they'll go to other firms as well, and they'll get multiple names to review their technology. So the last reason that I reference is because the community expects you to. Your investors do, all of your stakeholders expect you to. That would be my answer.
Yeah, Jock, what do y'all add?
We like the term as well. You can't check your own homework, so that's why you need to get a third party security firm to look at the code as well. There's no point getting the developers that wrote it to check it, because biases and also just blindness to vulnerabilities that they might have inadvertently written into the code. And also as well, there are times where developers have purposely left backdoors in the contracts to exploit them later on. So that's why you always need that third party to do that for you. In simple terms, and reiterating Fletcher's points as well, the fact that it's a public ledger, I like to think of it as a double-edged sword. So publicly visible from any piece of like tech or computer, whatever, that you can see the blockchain. That's really good. But then on the flip side of that, it's publicly visible from anyone. So bad actors as well can see everything that you do. So another point there would be immutability. So that's a really cool process when you're sending money, that it's permanent. And I would say that that system is a better function than traditional financial systems that we have in place. But it also doesn't work if you accidentally send it to the wrong place, or that sort of is a downside. So it's always a double-edged sword. I think the pros outweigh the cons, but that's sort of just the nature of the tech itself.
Right, I think we have delivered the clearest and the best answer regarding that. So let's go further. Let me ask you a question regarding specific on Envelop, because Envelop is a wrapping protocol for NFTs implemented on 15 chains, EVM chains, of course. Is there any specific regarding NFT if compared to all the Web3 cybersec realm? And the second part of the question, what are your thoughts on multi-chainity? Is that good or bad for industry itself? Maybe we're wasting resources for development, things which are doomed from the date one to die. I mean, different chains where nobody is building, and they are wasting a lot of marketing resources for developers come to us, build our chains. You know what I mean. So what are your thoughts on NFT and multi-chainity?
You make a good point on the multi-chain stuff, yes. So it's always a dilemma. What chain do you build on first? And typically you don't go multi-chain straight away. You build on, you pick a chain, you build there, you gain some users, then you go multi-chain. But some projects by nature are multi-chain, like bridges and things like that. So it is a good dilemma. And a lot of layer ones get built, or layer twos, and they just never attract the users, or they spend, like you say, all their marketing budget to get developers to build technology on their chain, but they never spend any marketing or achieve any marketing that gets the users. So they get the developers, but not the users. So we're a huge fan of multi-chain technology, and we think it's really important, but it's something that is slowly coming around and maturing as the industry matures. On the NFT side of things, we don't do a heap of NFTs within Hashlock. Most of our stuff is, more larger protocols and enterprise blockchain and, more broad Web3 stuff. However, sometimes there is non-fungible tokens built into what we audit. And there's a few things. NFTs have a bad rap, somewhat, particularly because they're tied to prices, and they're sort of another way to sometimes do a pump and dump, which is hard to audit against. It's hard for us to tell in the code if it's a pump and dump project. So that's one thing. So that's sort of the negative, but on the positive, there's a bunch of innovations that are being built on top of non-fungible tokens, and actual utility in terms of, personable data and privacy, and just ownership of assets and real world assets and DPINs, and so decentralized physical infrastructure and things like that. So yes, so that's more the area that we work in. And I think it's another thing as the industry matures, we'll probably see more of.
Yeah, with what Fletcher was saying, because generally I would assume when you think of NFT, you do think of sort of the digital artwork collectibles PFP sort of situation. Typically as well, because we are a high quality firm, and ERC 721s, unless you're adding a bunch of utility and functionality, it's typically pretty safe so long as you don't change much. But obviously you still need to get it audited. But it's really cool what you guys are doing. Adding programmable functionality to NFTs with Envelop, and you guys are chain agnostic. I'd like to say that Hashlock is chain agnostic, so we use security researchers that are across pretty much every chain. Solidity would be probably the main stuff that we do, but it goes everywhere from Go Rust, PyTeal even. We pretty much service every chain. So I would say, yeah, I think it's still that side of its tech as well as in its infancy, where we have seen the first iterations with the digital art collectibles, but we're seeing more and more things pop up in like sort of real estate, in documents, in sort of ownership in real world asset space when it comes to NFTs as well. So I think it's just part of the tech sort of feeling out what ideas and use cases are the most appropriate.
Well, great answer. And I love to hear that we are both chain agnostics. I love that phrase. So guys, to wrap up our episode, the final question, if you could snap your fingers and make just one thing in a free chance, what thing will it be, Fletcher? In current stage of development of the world of free.
Yeah, good question. I think the thing that's needed is, and I think a lot of people have said this, you need to be able to use blockchain technology without knowing that you're using blockchain technology. So when we use our laptops or our phones, we don't know what code it's written in or necessarily what infrastructure it's accessing when I log in different apps. We just know that it works, and we sort of understand the hardware we're using and how to use it. But but right now, most people, when they're using blockchain technology, they know they're using blockchain technology. So you sort of are in the industry and you understand blockchain and you're using it. Not many people who aren't in the blockchain industry use blockchain. So I think that's the issue that is for continued mass adoption. It's being able to use blockchain without knowing you're using it, or even invest in it without knowing you're investing it. I think the ETFs are a good step for the investing side of things, because in the future with retirement funds and things like that, if they mix that in over time, you can be having your investments handled by funds and investment managers and not knowing that you're investing in blockchain assets. So that's one, and real world assets and things like that are another one. But yeah, I think the simple answer that everyone usually gives is just, being able to use blockchain technology without knowing that you're using it.
Yeah, Jock, what would be your thing to be changed?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that we call it Web3, but a lot of the aspects of the sort of UI UX and functionality and the sort of how interoperable it is between chains and different sort of transactions. It does sort of seem like a lot of those aspects are more Web 1, and I think that's it's sort of like like Fletcher was saying, at some point, we went from, opening operating systems that are extremely easy to use, that pretty much now have depending on your thoughts of the use case, AI assistants embedded into them, and that's happening now with phones. And so we're seeing a lot more sort of easy access for different technical capabilities and much better user interface and UI and UX. And I think with Web3, you do need to have quite a deep technical understanding. I wouldn't expect sort of the older generations to really access and use Web3 in its current state as readily as they would an iPad or something like that. And that's why obviously you see those sort of devices and that technology really popular with those demographics. So I would say that if we could sort of progress like we have from, using computers with the command line into, mouse and keyboard desktop environments that are really easy to use, if we can make things more interoperable. And I think we're seeing that now as well with like wallets that are integrated with email signups and things like that. And like Fletcher was saying, using the tech without knowing that you're using it. You don't need to have a degree in data science or networking to use the internet, but it seems like you need to have sort of a pseudo degree in blockchain to use some sort of deeper elements of Web3. So I think it's just because the tech is in its infancy, it hasn't been around for that long. So even though it feels like a long time sometimes, we'll get there eventually.
Fletcher, you mentioned mass adoption. I used to be the mass adoption believer some years ago, but I stopped a bit. I'm not now. I think it is a sort of elite thing, Web3, from my perspective, because the vast majority of people are not intellectually developed for grasping and comprehending what's going on in Web3. And that's why we are talking with you in so close space for 15 years already. Guys, it's been awesome episode. You've expanded my worldview picture too much. This is call to action time for now. What resources do you need? Of course, you will not be rejecting for you clients who may come from this podcast. It's no brainer. How to get in touch with you, how to follow you, how to start being audited by guys from Hashlock.
Good question. So hashlock.com has areas that you can reach out if you need an audit. It has areas that you can reach out if you want to be an auditor with Hashlock. It has areas that you can just reach out for other reasons, and it also has all of our social links. So definitely go to hashlock.com. Our main platforms are Twitter and LinkedIn. You can easily, Twitter and X and LinkedIn. You can easily find us there. And you'll also see us at a lot of events. So if you're going to, depending when this gets released, if you see this, if you're going to Token 2049, we'll be there, and we typically have people at most Web3 events that happened around the world. So that's the other way to see us, and we usually sponsor side events, so you'll be able to find one of our events around and come say hi.
Well, I think we're going to be talking to 2049. I love this brand. So I'm going to release this episode very, very soon. So thank you very much, guys, for joining me today. It's been an awesome episode. So guys, we're free fellows, Joe Haslam, Fletcher Roberts, hashlock.com. Find a website into the description and go there and meet these guys on Token 2049. And be smart. Use all the cheat codes for cybersecurity. Don't make simple, stupid mistakes, which these gentlemen from Australia have educated us today in this episode of the Smart NFT podcast. Please like, share, subscribe, and let's meet anywhere you like in Australia and Bali and Token 2049 and everywhere and where the free smart guys are inhabiting this planet Earth. Thank you very much and bye-bye. Blockchain. BLOCK chain. Digital money, smart contracts, NFT, IDO, decentralization, transparency. So many opportunities, but so many challenges. Some financial manipulators, by their actions, confuse blockchain solutions and block their development. The idea that the blockchain should bring copyright and royalties protection to the next level is quite old, but the realizations of these ideas are not perfect at all. There is another problem of determining the value of a particular cryptocurrency or NFT. These and other problems need to be solved. Unfortunately, the blockchain infrastructure is evolving. My name is E, Mr. E, and I represent the Envelop project. Many things have already been invented in the blockchain today. Tokens, smart contracts, platforms for creating your own coins, NFTs, exchanges for buying, selling, and exchanging all these blockchain resources. Envelop is another step in the development of crypto technologies. The protocol that works with NFT and cryptocurrencies. The idea is simple but disruptive. Let's assume you have an NFT, Bitcoin and Ethereum. Using the Envelop protocol, you can wrap the original NFT accompanied with several tokens. Technically, you get a similar NFT, but what is the breakthrough here? Once wrapped, the token has a number of additional features that were not available before. The minimal cost appears. It is provided with coins wrapped together with NFT. An asset wrapped with Envelop has a number of properties that allow the original author to receive royalties from the resale of that asset. Various rules can be applied to the wrapped token. For example, a lock period for unwrapping. It secures the asset till the determined moment or safeguards it from speculation during the hype period. At the same time, wrapped tokens can be transferred and traded. These are just some of the scenarios for using Envelop. NFTs become more popular, and the tools provided by Envelop expand the opportunities of NFTs utilization. Wide application possibilities are achieved due to the fact that, in addition to the protocol, the project includes a number of subsystems. The protocol provides functions wrapping and unwrapping. Oracle mechanics provides asset valuation using analytical algorithms. Index provides a summary assessment of several NFT assets with the common criteria. The project has its own token, which connects all elements of the system. Altogether, this is Envelop, a tool in the blockchain world for building modern and secure systems in various fields. Find more info about the project on the website. Envelop. Make your NFT valuable. Just practical, no hype.